Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we have got a really great show for you, our audience today. It's going to be wonderful because we're going to be talking about death and the fact that death's a given, but you can live your best life. And we hope that if you're grieving a loss of someone, you're going to get inspired by this show.
I absolutely agree, Mom, and I am really excited about this because even though we've had a loss, we can live our best lives, and our guests are here to tell us how because they've interviewed a lot of people on this topic, and I will introduce them and then we'll talk to them about what they've done.
Great.
They've made a documentary called Mortal, and their names are Sarah Feldman Sheehan and Bobby Sheehan, and they are a husband and wife team, which I love. They have written and produced and directed Mortal. And it's the first documentary that addresses the new shifting paradigm on how we view life and death.
And you know, our second guest is going to be Lillian Julian. And the interesting thing about this is that she actually, coincidentally, we just found out was a participant in their documentary Mortal. So that's going to be interesting. But the thing, we've known Lillian for a long time, fabulous woman, and she has an organization called COPE. And that was a result of the loss of her child. And that she did that, and she's just done so much to help people on Long Island, and she runs a fabulous Camp Erin. So she's going to tell you about that, and please let people know about this camp because it's a great summer camp that you're going to love, and she'll be talking more.
Absolutely, and as you said, Mom, we've known Lillian for a long time, and the thing that I love about Lillian is she does live her best life. And although she's had the loss of her husband and the loss of her daughter, she lives a life filled with joy and purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the show, you two. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Mortal. How did you, and we're going to be seeing, by the way, a clip of this in a few minutes, but tell us about how you decided to do a documentary.
Well, I never met my dad, and when Sarah's parents finally accepted the fact that I wasn't going away, her dad became my father. It was not in law, he was my father, and he has 2 daughters, and he didn't have a son, and we just clicked. I mean, he got a kick out of me. He loved the fact that I was kind of arty and weird, and he had to like convince his wife, Sarah's mom, that it's okay. So I loved him very deeply.
That's great.
And when he started to, in my eyes, started to die, my instincts are to talk to people, interview people. It's what I do for a living. So I started talking to people about the fact that he was dying, and initially it was easier, not easier, but I was more comfortable with talking to people, not with Sarah or her parents, because it was so difficult. So when I would be filming somewhere else, I would say, my father is dying. I want to make a film about death called Mortal, but it's really going to be about life.
Right.
And that's how it started.
Right.
It was.
And so it's about life in what way?
Well, I think, if you know that you have this much time, even though you don't know how much time that is, at a certain point it's over. So the people that are aware that there is some cutoff point seem to be the people most present in their life. And that's a tricky business because that sounds very lofty and easy, and I think it's a really hard thing. And when we meet people, we interview them, and they actually walk the walk. It's not just like a slogan that they use. Those people are so present. And we've interviewed people for Mortal, and there were some people who knew that they might die really soon, and those people were the most present people I've ever interviewed or been in the presence of.
That's amazing.
And I think what was so amazing about interviewing all these different people was opening up these conversations about how you want to live the rest of your life and choices that you're going to make. And in going through those choices and the options available to you, it kind of crystallized your core values. What kind of a life do I want to lead? And I think that's what you're talking about, living your best life. And having those conversations and making those choices and having those connections on a really important level, it really improves your quality of life going forward. And that was my takeaway.
I wanted to ask you, how did you feel about him wanting to make a documentary at first about your dad?
At first it was awful. I mean, it was just, I felt like I was splayed open. I felt very vulnerable. This is this man I love so much. However, going through the process has been so cathartic. And I find that it's given my mother so much purpose, and it's helped my mother so much with her grief and becoming expert in caring for somebody who is becoming slowly diminished and then eventually gone.
Now, how long ago did he die?
He died last January.
January 16th.
Yeah.
And how long were you
2015.
into the film?
We were like
No.
eight months in, but
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that is that it was really awkward at first because I didn't want to feel that we were exploiting, Sarah's dad's death, and what really kind of helped me move forward with it was actually working with her mom, because part of the healing grieving process where we had done films for 2 monks, Chodo and Koshin, who we love. They have a thing in New York called the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care. So we've helped them do fundraising films. And I spoke to Chodo, and I told him what was going on. And the fall before Skip died, there was a conference at the Garrison Institute. So I took Carol with me up there, and I said, Carol, look.
Your mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law, yes. And I had her interview people, because she reads the New York Times every day. She's a retired school teacher. She's brilliant. So, and I had her interview people who were like Dr. Diane Moyer, Dr. Ira Bayok, Dr. Craig Glinderman, Chodo and Koshin, and she was talking to them about end of life issues, because she was living it.
Right.
And it was just, she just was beaming. She met all these people, and she just, like, it was a unexpected manner in which she could talk about her grief, even though her husband wasn't, dead yet. He was dying.
And this is in your film.
Yes.
I love this, and one of the things that resonates with me, and we were talking earlier before the show about this, when I was 20, my 17-year-old brother and cousin died together in a car accident. And after that happened, it was such an aha moment for me. It was almost like I woke up and went, I am not going to live forever. My life has a beginning and it has an ending. And I need to live my best life right now, today.
Right.
And that was when I really started living life fully and not taking every day for granted.
Right.
And started really getting busy living every day, because who knows when the end is going to happen. You know, we're on a journey, and it does end.
It does.
I wanted to say something about parent loss too. We have a very large website with 1 million people visiting us, and our #1 visit is loss of a parent, death of a parent, and there is not a lot out there. I just don't think people realize, when you think death of a parent, people are thinking little kids, lose their parents, and that's what all the books are about, and all that kind of thing. It's wrong. It's adults having their parents die.
Which is a wonderful point, because, I thought, here, I'm making this film, I'm going to be in such great shape, this is going to happen, I'm going to be able to handle it because I've been processing this for months. And it happened, and boy, I was hit by a truck. I was not expecting how really devastated I was. I really felt I had prepared myself, and I don't think you ever really can prepare yourself. But the one thing that my mom has always taught us is, if you feel really bad, how can you help somebody else? That's how she copes. And I think in making this film with us, I think she feels that she's helping other people because she's taking them along on her journey.
And now you're going to produce another film after this, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we realize that this subject matter is so dense that we really need to go into subjects, drill a little bit deeper. So our next one is going to be When Morning Comes, about grief, and the ones after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just impossible once you enter these discussions to fit everything into a 90-minute film. It's just impossible. So our plan is to now that we're on this frequency, then we're committed to getting it right. And getting it right means we need to do more work. So grief is just such it just affects everyone in different ways. And there's so many different kinds of it that we want to make a film just focused on grief and healing, because that helps people. And it's helped us, right?
And the thing that you brought up in your films, which it impacts us, I think, for different reasons. One, for me and for the people that I've known that have had loss, it impacts me because I miss that person that died so dearly.
Right.
And the second one is, every time I have a death, it reminds me of my own mortality.
Absolutely.
And the idea that I'm going to die. And I think of a parent death. When our parents die, I mean, you've never known the world without your parents in them.
No.
When our parents die, we're next in line.
Right.
It kind of reminds us of that as well.
Absolutely.
There's one piece I hope you do bring up in the film, which I was talking to somebody about recently. It's kind of strange, but there is also a certain sense after both of your parents died that I don't have anybody to answer to anymore.
I guess that's good and bad.
It actually is there. Yeah, it's a piece that people don't ever talk about. There's a certain amount of freedom, which is kind of interesting in having that happen. Well, why don't we take a look at the roll-in of Mortal?
As a child, we don't know about birth and death. We're discovering the world for the first time. That keeps your curiosity moving. Curiosity is a major quality in investigating life and death.
What equates to a successful life is one where you've paid attention, and that is a worthwhile life, regardless of the ups and the downs.
It's called living fearlessly. It's like really looking at how to live without fear and accepting that we have fear.
We can experience all of life, all the beauty, the splendor, the magic, deep love, and absolute deep pain. It all goes together. If you drink from the whole cup of life, it makes the whole thing all right.
What our faith tells us is that life is ultimately good, creation is good, and we're gonna be okay.
It's okay to be afraid, but make a step to learn more, educate yourself. We're in it together.
Like anybody else, I'm gonna die, but I think I got something to say about it, like how and when.
One of the greatest gifts as human beings we have is the ability to pause after an event and choose our response. And we decide how we're gonna feel about it, and we decide how we're gonna think about it, and we decide what we're gonna do afterwards.
It's not a question of getting into the pearly gates, it's what will happen to the people I love? Who will take care of those people? And how will my love live on? People die, love doesn't die.
If they knew that, they would live in a much more conscious way and practice generosity and morality and tolerance. They would trust in the universe more.
In a way, when we go to the other side, it's going to have to be anything but bliss.
The truth is that we hope that this little guy will be this old man. We don't know his story, we don't know our story, right? It will all unfold.
Is being mortal. And being mortal, I think, is a beautiful thing.
Well, Lily and Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, Lily.
Hi.
It's great to have you on, Lily. And again, Lily's the founder of COPE, Connecting Pathways Eternally, with the mission of helping families live with the loss of a child. And it includes sibling and parent support groups, as well as sponsoring Camp Erin, which is part of the Moyer Foundation.
I love that Lily's here, Mom, because I look at Mortal and I look at the clip that we just saw, and it has such a hopeful message. And it's about how to live in a positive, joyful, life with the best life that you can. And I feel like Lily really does that. She is such an optimistic, positive person. It's just who she is.
Absolutely. We met her through the Compassionate Friends when she presents. And I know you've been on these guys' film, and we want to bring them in a few minutes and talk together about what that experience was like. But tell us now about your camp, Camp Erin, and what you'll be doing. And it's this summer, right?
Yes, it's this summer, August 27th, 28th, and 29th. And our camp is in Pennsylvania, but Camp Erin is all over the country. We were fortunate enough to become an affiliate of the Moyer Foundation, and Jamie Moyer is a baseball player, and he met a little girl named Erin through Make-A-Wish. And Erin was concerned about her siblings and what was going to happen to them after she passed. And she was 15, and when she did pass at 17, Jamie and his wife Karen Moyer put $1 million into a foundation and made a pledge by 2012 to have a Camp Erin in every major ballpark city through the United States. So we're in New York City, and we were the 43rd camp to come on. And everybody has our story, their story, and these children come to camp from all different backgrounds, and with the one common denominator of loss. and they come in with all different emotions on Friday, and come in afraid and sad and angry, and they don't know what to expect. But they come in with this wonder, and in 48 hours, the transformation that happens is just unbelievable.
Right.
It really, really is incredible.
Now, if I'm watching this and it sounds so great, how do I find out about it?
Well, our camp is a program of COPE. As you mentioned, COPE is
You're doing groups and everything in Long Island with COPE, right?
Yes. So one of the criteria for becoming a partner with the Moyer Foundation was having a bereavement organization to offer that continued support after camp.
Oh, great.
So, we fit the bill. And then the other wonderful synchronicity was that my cousins have a sleepaway camp. So I had a camp where to do Camp Erin.
Fabulous.
How long have you been doing the camp?
We're going into our 5th summer.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's just amazing. I mean, it's just the highlight of the year.
So Lily, did you get into the idea of a grief camp because of your own loss? Because I know that you lost your husband and you lost your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't you lose them quite close together, as far as
6 years, wasn't it?
8 years.
Okay, so there was an 8-year time frame.
It was actually my husband passed on the same date as my daughter passed 8 years before.
Wow, my goodness. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I've heard those stories
Oh
before.
my
Isn't that
gosh.
incredible?
Yeah.
It's really unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
as a result of your own adversity and your own loss, did you then decide, you know, how we transform our lives, as it shows in Mortal, we know that, we only have this much time on the earth. Did you decide at that point, at some point, I'm going to do a camp to help other people, or was it not?
Again, there was synchronicity.
Yeah, right.
So when, shortly after my daughter lost her life in a car accident.
And what year was that?
That was in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to me in a dream, and she said to me, "I'm okay, Mommy. You're the ones that aren't okay, and you need to reach out and help each other."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And so this dream inspired COPE.
How long was that after she died that you had the dream? Just
it was within it was a very short time.
Okay. And did you start
very
COPE right
short
away,
time.
or did you wait?
Well, I started planting seeds because I had this dream, and she inspired this mission. So I started doing whatever I could. I did not know another parent who had lost a child. But like I said, COPE had a life of its own, and I started meeting other parents. And we started meeting in each other's homes, and unfortunately, we had each other, and in helping each other, we were helping ourselves. And then, we grew into a bigger organization. And then by 1999, we became a nonprofit, and that was only 2 months after my husband passed.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and then with this loss of my husband, my children now had lost a sibling and a parent and a father. So still there was no idea for camp. I went to camp, my cousin's camp, to heal after the loss of my my husband that summer.
And you saw the power of camp.
Well, I went to camp. I went to this camp as a child. My children went to this camp. But what happened, and I didn't even know what the experience was going to bring. But fast forward, when Jamie Moyer was talking about Camp Erin on the Today Show, and everyone immediately thought of me because I'm such a camp person. So they called me, and I was like, oh wow, I could do this. I have a place, I have a camp. I had worked at the camp for 6 years after my husband passed. 6 summers in directing the art program. So I had all these campers.
You were all in place for it.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And then recently, it sounds like you got together with Bobby and Sarah and were interviewed for their film.
Yeah, tell
Mortal.
us about that and how did you meet them?
Well, I was at the Deaf and Dying conference at the Open Center, and I heard that you were interviewing for your film, and I had a story to tell, so I went and signed up, and I went upstairs and I told you my story, and through tears.
The synchronicity word.
The synchronicity,
Because
yes.
we have not seen each other since then.
Right.
And the reality is, like I said earlier, is that we need to make more films. So the next film that we're making is called When Morning Comes. And when she's telling the story about these kids, that has to be a huge part of this movie. I mean, again, the anonymity of children and all that, because we've dealt with that with stuff. So, but we do seriously, I mean, imagine that if we give these kids cameras and they tell their own story and we don't touch it. We just, you know, as part of the camp thing, you know, it's like, so when you were saying that, I'm thinking, what a gift all this can be, and take some of these little guys and give, if they want. Again, I'm not joining your parade here, but in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't that be lovely? Just
Do you know what? Do you know what I'm loving here is how we talk about grief and loss, and people are, you know, we don't want to touch that subject. We don't want to talk about, and yet there's so much energy and so much smiling and so much hope and. You know, there's so much transformation.
Yeah, that's the key.
And I love this idea because in telling our stories, we heal.
Right.
And you know, people love to tell, we love to talk about how they lived.
Right.
That's the story we want to tell.
Exactly.
So I love the idea of giving kids cameras and letting them tell their story and have their voice.
And
Yeah.
just imagine the potential outcome of that.
Oh, it could be amazing.
I mean, the what would be more authentic than that?
Absolutely.
For sure. And, you know, I just think people talk about us being a death-denying society, and, you know, I really don't feel that way about it myself. I think we're a life-affirming society.
Yes.
And figuring out how to affirm, using the losses to affirm.
Put meaning to the loss.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and find meaning and find purpose, and I think one of the biggest things is, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, is when you can start giving to other people.
Right.
It is so powerful.
But children don't know how to do that, and children don't have that. When loss happens to a child, they feel very, very alone, and they have to go back to school, and they're in their peer group that has no idea what's happened to them.
Their teachers?
Their teachers, oh.
So Lily, what advice would you give to people out there watching that are saying, yes, she's right, I'm worried about my children. I don't know what to do at this point. What advice would you give people out there?
As a parent that has lost a child, I could barely help myself, let alone help my children. And I didn't have Camp Erin. So now there's just much more support out there than my children, my son and daughter had then.
Right.
When Michelle passed. And now they volunteer today at the camp, and they give back from a very deep place, inside of them from their own loss. And they inspire these kids. And these kids, like, we get feedback, because many of the volunteers have had loss themselves. And, the kids, take that inspiration, and then they want to come back to the camp, and they want to be volunteers, and they want to be able to give it to the, to the next child. I mean, the kids, we have waiting lists, of kids that want to come back to the camp after they've been there.
Right.
And
so going to these camps is very, very important.
It's amazing, and there's this balance between grief activities with professional grief professionals and volunteers that are running camp programs. So they have their grief circles, and then they're running to the waterfront, and they're rafting and flying around the lake, with a motorboat, and or they're on the ropes. And there was this one child, and she was like zipping in on the zip line. She was swinging from a rope and just screaming at the top of her lungs, you know, I'm free.
That's amazing.
And someone climbing, you know, a rope wall, you know, the climbing wall. And
So I'm thinking, it's
you
making
know,
me think about
so inspiring.
wanting to ask, Bobby and Sarah, I'm hearing all these incredible takeaways about the camp. Was there a takeaway in Mortal or something that you walked away with learning more about, or an aha moment for you, or anything that you wanted to end with?
Many.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you want to do one, or?
I'll start and then you can finish.
Okay.
my aha moment is we're not alone.
Yeah.
And that for me, you know, I felt so lonely in my grief. I tended to go inward, and we're not alone. And there's so many wonderful people and programs out there that you can reach out to. I think you're right. We're not a death denying. I think it depends upon your context. My takeaway was, okay, I know I have this amount of time left. What do I want to do? How do I want to give back? How do I want to live with purpose? Let me take this and make it into something that's constructive.
Well, we're going to let Sarah have the last word, Bobby. And that's the last word for the show.
Welcome to my house.
And we want to thank everybody for watching
you
the
so
show
much.
today. It's been fantastic having these guests on. They're just fabulous people, aren't they, Heidi?
They are. They're inspirational.
And we hope you'll get inspired by it, and we hope that you'll think of ways that you can serve or have your kids go to camp or whatever. And Heidi and I also want to remind you that if you've lost hope and you're feeling really discouraged now, I think all of us would say here today, please lean on our hope until you find your own, and God bless.